Are the SEC and Big Ten trying to break up or break away from college football? That's something that's been popping up lately. The two conferences have announced this move, Matt DeBerry. But it's really not about moving away from college football, but putting pressure on the college football playoff, which is so important in all of college sports because of what it's accomplished and done. The SEC and the Big Ten, of course, have different leagues, different broadcasting partners. There's all sorts of stuff going on there. But now, as we move into a 12 team playoff, what the SEC and the Big Ten are trying to do is make sure that, like, you know, Florida Atlantic doesn't have as much say about the future of college football as University of Florida. That's part of what's going on here, and I have more to say about it in a second. But what's your view of the two behemoths in our sport getting together?
Not really surprised. I mean, it's just more changes to college football, the greatest game on the planet, and just something that we're going to have to get used to. But it's clear that this is becoming almost an NFC, AFC with
Yeah.
a few other spattered teams. I mean, it's tough for Clemson and Florida State because they're missing out on playing with the big boys now. Same with Oklahoma State and the Baylors and the TCUs, the whoever's, Arizona States. So those conferences, I mean, are I guess respectable, but we're talking about the two behemoths. There's a reason Texas and Oklahoma went to the SEC. There's a reason Oregon and Washington, USC, UCLA moved. It's the SEC versus the Big Ten, and probably 8 of those 12 playoff spots will be going to teams in those conferences.
Yeah.
And I don't even know where Notre Dame fits in here. They're, I guess, getting left out of these two big ones too, which is a
I
weird
wonder,
deal
Matt.
for them.
I
Yeah, go
wonder. I don't know if you can see me on the screen or not.
again this time.
Okay. I wonder if Notre Dame has outplayed its hand here a little bit. You know what I mean? I mean,
You continue, but I think I agree with what you're about to say.
I just, I kind of want to nestle in somewhere, and the ACC is not as powerful as the Big Ten or the SEC. Greg Sankey, who is the commissioner of the SEC, is no idiot. Okay, he's been around the block for a long time. He's the longest serving commissioner at this point. He came in 15, I think it was, and he's done a lot of work with broadcasting and Disney and everything to get the SEC to where it's settled. And you turn around, and you look, and you say, well, the SEC is probably best positioned as anybody else. They might not be making as much money, and they might be in the future. But if I'm Notre Dame, I'm sort of in the ACC. In football, I'm not in anything. And I think maybe I've been too cute here in these last 15 years. I think they probably should have gone into whatever league. It would have helped the ACC out. That has not happened. Um, but Notre Dame has to, they can't win a conference championship, and that penalizes them in the college football playoff. They can never get a bye.
Yeah, I mean they were kind of asking for it, right? Being on
They
NBA
literally asked
full
for it.
time, and now it is kind of biting them in the butt. But they are a historic program that always has the potential to possibly be really good. And it's crazy to think they haven't won a national championship, I guess, since '88, like before I was born.
Yeah.
It feels like they'll win one at some point, right?
Not
But
to
now
me.
it things are a little tougher now. But if you're Georgia and all these programs in the SEC, you have to feel like you're in a really good spot because of Greg Sankey, who might be one of the smartest people in the game right now. And if you could say, hey, there's one guy, one commissioner of college football, I think Greg Sankey's name might be one of the first you mentioned. But I don't know if it benefits all these major programs from a viewership deal, contracts with all these media companies or whatever. I mean, you got to specialize in that. You know those numbers and what is good for the programs with these TV deals and ratings and all that, and what's not. But I do think that it'll possibly bring more eyes to college football. These new changes coming with these two giant conferences, especially because, I mean, it's all everywhere. The Big Ten has teams in Rutgers, in New Jersey, and in California. So I do think in a way it brings more eyeballs. The SEC gets those Oklahoma and Texas eyeballs. They already had some of Texas with the Aggies. Tough deal for them. Things got a lot harder for them. They've never won anything anyway. But now it's even tougher for that program, who is about as desperate as any of them to win something. But I'm excited for it all because I just think it's another chance for us to adapt to these new changes of college football. Eventually, I'd like all the changes to stop and we know what it's going to be like for the next several years, but there's always some type of change coming. I think it's good change, Dean, but you would know more than I would.
I mean, I don't know if I know more than you know. I mean, I think that if you watch collegiate sports, do you think it's a better product today than it was 15 years ago?
I don't know. I just felt that that era of college football was just a, I don't know if it was just more genuine or just, I don't know. I love that time of the mid 90s up through the 2000s and all that. Like I like the stadiums a little more. These logos weren't as cartoony as the new like Bulldog logo is that people love. I don't know. I just have a special spot in my heart for that era of college football. I don't know if the game is better. I don't know if the players are better now. They're certainly bigger and probably faster, but I don't know if it's a better product. But people are watching. I know that. I feel like this is as popular the game has been in a long, long time. And I could be wrong there, but a lot of people are very much invested in college football, no matter what they say. There's a lot of people out there, Dean, that are like, oh, if they do this and they start paying players and doing this, I'm not watching college football. Yeah, you are, and the numbers and the the ratings say so.
So that was a time during Jerry Sandusky at Penn State, Reggie Bush at USC. So there was a lot of stuff under the surface that we didn't
Yeah.
know then that we know now, and that may be the case now and going into the future. I hope not, but the skill level of football is clearly better now, and I think frankly we're seeing bigger games because the big teams are meeting. What's bizarre about our current situation, Matt, is like we're getting ready. The Super Bowl is on Sunday. If the Super Bowl has over 115 million people watching it, that will mean that sports has recovered from the COVID, bottom and has continued to go on up. Well, college football just had its most watched season ever, and I don't see how 2014 isn't going to be bigger than 2013 because you automatically have Georgia, Bama, Georgia, Texas, Georgia. I mean, you have the usual suspects, and now you also have Washington playing Michigan, Texas playing Michigan this season, Ohio State I think plays SC. I can't remember. Oregon, yeah. So I think what's happening is we're no longer being force fed. Um, don't take this the wrong way. South Carolina and Oklahoma State, like you can watch them still, and that's great. And there's millions of people that love the Gamecocks. God bless them, but they're not a name brand. And someone in Minnesota is not going to watch South Carolina play. They're going to watch the Dogs, but they're only going to watch Georgia right now because Georgia's good right now. If South Carolina had built this up over 25 years, it'd be a different ballgame. But I think what Greg Sankey and the new commissioner of the Big Ten are trying to do is say, hey, we have brands here, man. And we don't want to just like dilute it and say, okay, Georgia Southern and Georgia State have as much power as Georgia does because they don't. And are they trying to break away? They're saying they don't want to, and I don't think they will. They can use the NCAA for whatever they want it to be. But I think this is a moment in time where, there's leverage right there for the SEC and for the Big Ten. They have a moment in time where they can get the appropriate amount of revenue, the appropriate amount of spots that they should be getting for their members in the playoff, the appropriate amount of whatever it may be. And I think they should be doing that, and it sounds like they are.
For sure. If you're the SEC, you're looking at your, teams top to bottom, and yeah, they could have six of the best 12 teams in the country in the SEC or the Big Ten. So having these mega conferences, I think, is only going to help because you talk about strength of schedule. All these teams are going to be playing really tough quality games every week. There aren't as many cupcakes. I think Georgia has two cupcakes. And then a third if you want to include Georgia Tech. Some of you might, but the rest are pretty. Solid. It's they're not. There's a lot of roadblocks for a lot of teams. If you slip up once, you're done. But it doesn't eliminate you at all because you're in a mega conference, and quality wins might matter now more than ever. Especially a team that has two, maybe three losses trying to get in that 12 spot. We had two really good wins on the road against top 10 teams. So that might give them the benefit of the doubt. But um, I think it's just another element of why college football is the best. New changes. I hope it's good for the game, and I think it will be.
Probably will be because you're giving people what they want. They want the bigger match. They want to see Georgia. Go ahead.
More bigger games. And
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
yeah.
I mean, it means more losses, but when you were talking about the heyday of your youth, we couldn't even we couldn't determine a national champion.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it was that bad. And when, in '03, when we had the BCS, we had two national champions in a year where you couldn't have possibly had a national champion. And in 2011, when Bama and LSU, two teams that played in the same division, wound up playing one another for a national championship, I mean, the system was messed up, and the system had been messed up for such a long time. I went to eat somewhere about a week ago, and I ran into somebody who was just completely. He said, this guy was a Clemson guy. He said, I won't, if I never go back to watch another game, I'll be fine." And I said, "Well, they're still going to run down the hill, And he said, "Well, they've ruined it." And I said, and it's usually the older crowd that's upset with it. And I don't know what it's like to have something that I've cared for and loved for a long time just change. Now, I've loved college football my entire life, which is almost 50 years. That Carson Beck has a much nicer car than I have now. I don't care. It doesn't bother me at all. It, I mean, I don't know, but I think it really does bother some people. But the numbers bear out that either they're still watching. There were a lot of people that were mad at the NFL about kneeling. Well, they have all come back to watch. It sure looks like, or they've been replaced. And if people are this fired up about NIL and transfer portal, it's not going to change. And maybe they just won't be. Maybe they'll just be left behind, and that's just what it is. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, and you can't tell me they're not getting excited when their favorite team, whoever it is,
Right,
gets a big time player from the transfer portal. Then everything's okay. But the second the best team players on one of their teams, which doesn't happen at Georgia. If you leave Georgia, it's because you're not playing and you're not making an impact.
Yes, but it's happened to them in basketball. It has happened to them in basketball a couple of times.
But South Carolina just lost their best wide receiver, not to Georgia or Michigan or Ohio State, lost them to Ole Miss. So yeah, I get where a lot of people are like, okay, this is getting nuts here. But
yeah, but it's people who aren't winning or winning in the way that they used to win that are really bothered by this, I think.
Yeah, and I think too many people want to still call this cheating, but it's not cheating anymore. There's NIL is real. The transfer portal is real. Conference realignment happened, and it's happening more. I like you said, I think a lot of people don't like a lot of change, especially when it's their team, their sport, that what they look to every fall, and it's changing. A lot of people don't like it, but at the end of the day, you got to adapt, and your favorite team better adapt too, or it's only going to get worse for you.
Yeah, I don't use a typewriter anymore, so and I don't use a flip.
Good for you.
Yeah, thankfully, and I don't use a flip phone. The world changes, and it's not always for the better. But I would say in this case, it probably is. I would not want to be in a world where we didn't have the SEC championship, and
Yeah.
that was change. That was a huge change, and that I would not want to be in a world where Georgia didn't play on television. In my youth, they played on television 3 times a year. They were only allowed to play on television 3 times a year, Matt. That was it. And so, now I would say as a product, it's better than it's ever been. It's been packaged for television and all that, but it's better than it's ever been. And there are trade-offs for that. You're getting coaches getting paid like they're curing cancer, which they're not. You're getting players who are benefiting from their work, which I think is a good thing. Not everybody's getting the car that Carson Beck's getting. Bo Hughley is not getting that car. You know what I'm saying? Or Brett Thorson is not. Go ahead.
Carson Beck might be one of the 50 best quarterbacks in the world. He might be better
currently. Yeah, no.
NFL starter, but next year he will be better than a lot of NFL backups. So you could make the case that he's one of the best 50 quarterbacks in the world, even though he's not in the NFL. Yeah. If you're a top 50 quarterback in the world, maybe you can drive that car too. I think he's earned it.
I completely agree. There's a scene in Mad Men where I think Roger Sterling, one of the two guys, turns to another one of the partners and says, "Can you do what he does?" And the answer is no. And so if you can't do it, then why, why does it bother, anyone how much money Carson Beck is making? Or, amateurism has not existed in college football for generations. Go ahead.
Doctors get paid a lot of money, as they should, but there's a lot more doctors than Major League Baseball first basemen or
Yes.
quarterbacks. And you know my point, and I don't mean to sound negative in a way or anything like that, but I think the players are getting getting paid what they're worth, and so are most professions.
Most. Maybe not us. We're working on that. Thanks for watching.